Hi there. I'm Claire Donovan.
And I'm Daniel Brooks. Today on Deep Dive, we're looking back at a date that really changed the map of the world and the way we connect with one another.
It's a heavy day in the history of international relations, Daniel. On February 4th, 1945, the Yalta Conference began. This was where the Big Three, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin, met in Crimea at the Levadia Palace to decide what a post-World War II Europe would actually look like.
The stakes were incredibly high, Claire. While the Allies were winning the war, the unity between the Western powers and the Soviet Union was already showing some serious cracks. At Yalta, they were hashing out the occupation zones of Germany and the future of Poland. It was essentially the opening act of the Cold War, despite the outward appearance of cooperation between the leaders.
Exactly. Stalin wanted a sphere of influence in Eastern Europe for security, while Roosevelt and Churchill were pushing for democratic elections. That tension over Poland's sovereignty specifically really foreshadowed the decades of standoff that followed the fall of Berlin. It's a reminder of how quickly alliances can shift when a common enemy starts to fade.
Right. Moving from the global stage to individual legacies, today is also the birthday of one of the most significant figures in the American civil rights movement. Rosa Parks was born on this day in 1913.
Her legacy is so often simplified to just one moment on a bus in Montgomery back in 1955, but she was a lifelong activist, Daniel. She worked as a secretary for the local NAACP and was deeply involved in labor and workplace protections long before the boycott ever began. Her refusal to give up her seat wasn't a random act of exhaustion. It was a calculated, courageous stand against a segregated system.
That's remarkable to compare her quiet, firm resolve with another birthday today, Charles Lindbergh, born in 1902. He was a massive global celebrity for his 1927 solo flight across the Atlantic in the spirit of St. Louis. From an urban planning perspective, his flight helped prove the feasibility of commercial aviation, which would eventually transform how we build our cities and transit hubs.
True, though Lindbergh is such a complicated figure, Daniel. While his contributions to aviation are undeniable, he later faced immense criticism for his isolationist views and his opposition to U.S. involvement in World War II. He really illustrates how the heroes of one era can become the controversies of the next, depending on the lens of history.
That shift in public perception is something we see a lot in modern history, especially with the rise of the digital age. Speaking of which, our fact of the day takes us to February 4th, 2004, the day Mark Zuckerberg launched Facebook from his dorm at Harvard.
It's hard to believe it has been over 20 years since then. What started as the Facebook, a simple directory for college students, has ballooned into a platform with over 3 billion users. It fundamentally changed how we communicate, how we consume news, and even how political campaigns are run across the globe.
And before we wrap up, we have to mention a very different kind of cultural pioneer born today in 1948, Alice Cooper. He basically invented the theatrical shock rock genre. While Lindbergh was conquering the skies and Parks was changing the law, Cooper was redefining what a rock performance could be with his macabre stage shows and hits like School's Out.
He really did set the stage for generations of performers who wanted to push the boundaries of pop culture. It is a fascinating mix of events for one day, from the high-stakes diplomacy of Yalta to the birth of social media and the evolution of rock and roll.
I'm Claire Donovan.
And I'm Daniel Brooks. Thank you for joining us. You can find more historical dives at deepdive.neuralnewscast.com. Deep Dive is AI-assisted, human-reviewed. Explore history every day on Neural Newscast.